Hello everyone, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I'm broadcasting to you live from beautiful Budapest, Hungary, Central Europe. Today, September the 9th, and we're looking at a Task 2 sample question for IELTS. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? This is a members chat only class. Members get these requested classes as well as our 6 full practice exams. And as usual, our materials do come from our websites at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. So check us out there. Join those online courses to help you improve your band score and have success on your next IELTS exam so you don't have to sit again. Spend a little, save a lot. Hi, Manisha. I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing? Hi, Mohammed. Good to see you in class as well. I'm doing great, thank you. I hope you're doing well also. All right, so without further ado, let's have a quick look at our schedule here. Again, if any of our viewers have questions, you can always email me, adrian@aehelp.com. That's my name, at aehelp.com. And today we have this members chat only class. Then tomorrow, Monday, and the day after, we have a little bit of a break. Back on the 12th, and then all the way from the 12th through to the 16th, we have some classes for you, continuing with writing for our online course part 15 on Wednesday. Then we have a couple members chat only classes. We've already had a request for one of them to look at a task 1 map style question. So the question for today that we're going to tackle and discuss is here. Let's have a look at it. So task 2, write about the following topic. Many young people are leaving their rural areas to either work or study. What are the reasons for this? Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Give reasons for your answer and include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. So this is a classic task 2 type question where it's asking you if the benefits are more than the deficits of the specific situation. You have 40 minutes for this task. Don't spend less time on it. Make sure you spend that 40 minutes on task 2, and you have to write, of course, at least 250 words. So to get that task completion mark, you need the 250 words, and it's probably a good idea to go a little bit over so that you can get some more marks. Again, just remember, quality is more important than quantity, members. All right. So, Manisha, Mohammed, what should we do with this question? What's our first step? I'm sitting at the IELTS. I just finished my task 1. I'm feeling good. I'm all warmed up. My brain is moving in the world of literature. My hands are doing what my brain asks. And Manisha and Mohammed say, well, let's paraphrase this question. Absolutely. So let's rewrite this question in our own words. Make sure we understand it. Start thinking about it more deeply. Begin visualizing this question. It's a very good one to visualize, of course. So let's do this. Instead of many, a lot of young people, a lot of youth are leaving their rural areas, are leaving the countryside to either seek employment or further education. Why are they doing this? And are the benefits more than the negatives? Okay, so there's the paraphrase. It's more or less paraphrased. Again, Manisha, Mohammed, go ahead and paraphrase it while I'm explaining some points here, and then I'll take a look at what you did, give you some feedback. So we've got our paraphrase. We've got some good vocabulary here, not just work, but the word employment, We have the word benefits instead of advantages, negatives instead of disadvantages. So a good collection of some vocabulary now that I can use in my essay. I understand the question. I feel confident. Again, when you practice paraphrasing these task 2 questions at home, you will be able to do them pretty much just as quick as me. Maybe some of you even faster. Okay, pastures is a little bit awkward, Manisha. Pastures means grazing fields or lands. So, for example, where cows or horses graze. It's kind of like the countryside, but I think it's a little bit awkward in this content or context. So your paraphrase is, these days, youngsters are moving away from the countryside in search of greener pastures. Yeah, I see what you're saying there in the paraphrase. You're using greener pastures for a better life. Yeah, careful with expressions in a paraphrasing. What are the causes of this? Okay. Mohammed says, majority of adolescents are moving away from their villages for employment or education. What are the causes? Excellent. Very good, Mohammed. Adolescents is a good paraphrase here. Usually we are thinking of people who are in their late teens or early adulthood. Absolutely. And villages is a good paraphrase for rural areas. A village is a rural areas or towns. So some nice paraphrasing there as well, Mohammed, some good vocabulary use. All right, so we've got our paraphrasing, and we're visualizing this. What is the topic? So what's the topic in this case? Mohammed, Manisha, what do you think? What's the topic? What are we talking about in this question? What are we discussing? Okay, so let's see if you come up with the same thing. So it's choice of living place for young adults. I believe that is more or less the topic here. So the topic here is where young people choose to live. That's what we're talking about. Manisha, very nice. In one word, migration of young adults. I'm going to put that up there because it's a very nice identification of the topic. So very good vocabulary there again with migration. Migration of young adults. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great identification of the topic there, Manisha. Okay, and the controlling idea here is the second half of the sentence. So again, identifying the controlling idea. So we're talking about migration of young adults, but of course, in what content? So in what way are we talking about this? The controlling idea here is it for the better? So why? And is it for the better or worse? Okay, so that's the idea that controls this topic. So why are they doing it, and is it for the better or the worse? Okay, good to see a few more members hopping in. Hi Baljeet, hi Michael John, hi Naveen, and hi Jeffrey. Thanks for coming on board. You can see the question in the stream description. I've put it there as well, so you can reflect back to it. Okay. Jeffrey says a huge number of youth are moving to urban areas from their hometowns for further education or employment. Are the benefits greater than the deficits? Jeffrey, what I like about your paraphrase specifically is that you're identifying where they're moving to. So you're saying they're going from these rural areas to urban areas. Urban areas, of course, are cities. And yes, absolutely, we can infer this from the question. You did a really good job of seeing that that's kind of the missing piece from the original question, but that is what the question is referring to. So many young people are leaving their rural areas to either work or study, and then the missing piece here is in urban areas or major cities, something like that. But we can infer or assume that. So if you don't see it there, that's a very clever idea to grasp in this question. So good for you. Okay, so we have our topic, we have our controlling idea. What are we talking about here? Exactly what I just said. So people moving to cities for work or for living, let's say that. Now let's answer that why question. So why are people doing this? Why do people move from rural areas to bigger cities? What do you think are the main reasons? And for these why questions, when you're thinking about the topic why question, and when you're thinking about the controlling idea why question, think about it like if you ask 10 or 20 people, what do you think most people would answer for this? So Naveen, you're on the right track. You're saying for development, for some kind of self-development, but definitely you want to be a little bit more specific. So Jeffrey says for higher pay, so getting more money, right? And absolutely, that's a little bit more specific, and I agree that that's a little bit more clear. So earning more money. Yeah, I think if you ask 20 people, why do young adults move away from their rural areas, many people would say, well, they make more money. Okay, and I think, Naveen, what you mean by development is their education, right? To get higher education. So I think this is what you meant by that, Naveen, but it is important to be specific in your word choice. So rather than saying for self-development, in this case, it's better to say access to higher education. Of course, we're visualizing being able to go to colleges or universities. Seema, I think you're on the same page here, and welcome to the class, with better study opportunities, right? Career opportunities, Mohammed, absolutely as well, okay? So earning more money, get access to higher education. What else? What else? Again, if you visualize this, it would really help you a lot. So you're picturing some young adults in a rural area, in a farming community maybe. And what some of you might see when you're picturing this in your mind's eye is some of these young people are standing around, they're bored, they've had enough of working on the field, and maybe, just maybe, they don't have job opportunities, right? So they're moving to cities for better job opportunities or more job opportunities, right? No jobs in rural areas, okay? Continue on with your why thinking, right? Why is there a lack of employment in rural areas? So why might it be difficult to find a job in a rural area these days? In many cases. And I see that, Jeffrey, you put up medical care and entertainment. I think that's because you came on board maybe a little bit later to the class, but careful not to go off topic. The question does clearly state that we're discussing either work or study. Always pay attention to the question detail, because otherwise you can go off topic and make it into a much bigger question. The IELTS examiners here are trying to target or focus just a couple of areas for the question here so that the students don't get lost in their writing, okay? So why do a lot of people in rural areas lose their job or are unemployed? What's the reason behind that? And here, if you're visualizing, that will help you. Mohammed says, well, there's more technology available in cities. I don't know if that's true, Mohammed. I think that rural areas have access to a lot of technology also. And if you're visualizing this, then you might realize that a lot of manual labor, so in rural areas, a lot of the work is manual labor. It's working with your hands. And often, of course, as we know, these kinds of jobs are being replaced by machines, right? So no jobs in rural areas. Machines replace human labor. Okay? Hopefully you realize that as well. Now, if you're one of those really clever students, you might also think about when the biggest change happened, especially in the West, for this kind of movement from rural to urban areas. Can any of our members think of the answer that I'm trying to get you to visualize? So that's right, Mohammed, very quick, and that was very good. Absolutely, during the Industrial Revolution. So if you're visualizing, you can probably think of the Industrial Revolution when you think of this question. Okay? So since the time of the Industrial Revolution and the mechanization of farming, there's been a great shift from rural to urban areas. Okay, so how does this happen? Well, that's a simple one. Leave home, apply for university, look for work or seek jobs, right? All right, good. So in this case, the why question was really important to visualize and get a good in-depth idea of. Okay, controlling idea. So is it better or is it worse? You can split this into two different what, why, how questions. So you can start with better, and then you can repeat the same for worse. All right, so what is it? It's better. Why? More job opportunity. Many universities or post-secondary schools to choose from. Okay, how does it happen? So how does this migration happen? So the young person moves from their rural village to a bigger city, and then what happens after? Again, visualizing this, they get more education, and using this education, gain high-paying jobs or high-paying employment. Okay, so for this reason, it's better because it leads to a better life. Of course, more money means more luxury and a better chance for a better life that way. Hi, Shanu. Good to see you in class as well. Okay, so that's one reason that it's better. Can we think of another reason? So get more education, get smarter, get higher paying jobs. That's probably enough. So we have two there. We have education, more knowledge, and we have higher paying jobs, so we have more money, and we know what kinds of benefits those can lead to, so that's good. Okay, so why is it worse? Okay, we'll jump the what question here because that's the worse. Why can it be bad? That's an interesting question, and it's one that you definitely want to identify before you start writing. The why questions are arguably the most important questions to think of. So, Shanu, Naveen, why is it maybe bad to move away from a rural place, a rural village? What are the negatives of going from a village to a big city? Again, if you visualize this, you can probably figure out a couple of points very, very quickly. That's right, Shanu. That's one that I thought of as well. Cultural differences. So definitely between small settlements and large cities, there are cultural differences in the way people behave. Many people will say that in villages, people are more kind to each other, they're more respectable, they take their time, they're more patient. People in larger cities are more fast-paced, they're more rude towards each other. So there's definitely a cultural difference there. Naveen says, forgetting some of that conventional belief or that culture, absolutely, that's connected. What else could be a negative? Well, one could be being away from family, right? So if the young adults are moving away from their parents, maybe some uncles, grandparents, possibly siblings, then they're moving away from family, they're moving away from close connections, right? And that can be a negative, certainly, for people's mental state. Okay, so now we have a good idea of the question. We have a good idea of what we're going to write. Again, in the official IELTS, you want to do this very quickly. So you want to paraphrase the question, pencil and paper, because you can use it. And then the what, why, how, you don't have to write all of it down, but maybe just the key points in note form so you can structure your essay. And Mohammed says that, yeah, people can get lost in the concrete jungle. Again, Mohammed, that's relating to that cultural difference, right? So feeling estranged. All right, so once we have this, then we come to what? What should we do next? So what's my next step here? I kind of gave you a hint by putting up that first letter. So Shanu, Naveen, Manisha, if you're still with us, I haven't seen your comments in a bit. What should I do next? What is my next step? Can anybody tell me? And this is a very, very, very important step for your task 2 response. Again, if you do a good job on this, you should do a fairly good job on your essay. If you don't do a good job on this, you might have some trouble with your essay. So what should I do next before I begin writing? This is my last and potentially the most important step before I begin writing. What do? Naveen, yeah, it is connected with the structure. I've already visualized Manisha, and I'm continually visualizing throughout. And Naveen, this is connected to the structure, and Jeffrey has the right point. We come up with a thesis. The thesis gives us structure, okay? That's why it's so important. So your thesis statement is your argument statement. It's the last sentence of your introduction. It's the sentence that tells the reader where you are going with this essay, with your ideas. And if you do it well, it's going to read well, and you're going to get a nice high IELTS band score. So what is a good thesis for this essay? What do you think makes a good thesis for this essay? And I really want the members here to give me your thesis statements. Don't worry if it's not perfect. I'm here to correct it. But I'm going to give you some time to come up with the right thesis statement here. Obviously, you have to identify whether the advantages of going to a city from a rural area outweigh the disadvantages. So that needs to be clearly included in your thesis. And then you need to include a couple of points for your argument that structure your body paragraphs. So looking for those good thesis statements that will aid you and guide you to a band 7 or higher IELTS task 2 response. Of course, with a thesis, remember, have parallel grammar for your points. It's good to include personal statements here because it is a first-person essay. So you can say, I believe. You can use conjunctions like nevertheless or although or however to join together your ideas, make it that much more powerful. So keep all of these points in mind when you're constructing your thesis statement. Your thesis statement, of course, becomes a part of that essay, just like the paraphrase as well. So, Jeffrey, you have a partial thesis there, I think. If youth move to cities, they have a higher chance to fulfill their goals for job and education. So, Jeffrey, you'd want to start off with something like, I believe that the advantages of moving to cities from villages outweigh the disadvantages because youth have better chance for education and work, which gives them an overall higher quality of life. That would be a very effective thesis statement drawing from yours. Okay, so it's partial. Now, if you can't do it in one sentence, Jeffrey, or if you're afraid that you'll make a lot of mistakes trying to join so many ideas together into one sentence, don't worry about it. You can split it into 2. So you could say, I strongly believe the benefits of moving to cities from villages for youth outweigh the disadvantages. And then your second part, in larger cities, they have more chance for education and work, which gives them a better quality of life. So you can separate it into 2 sentences like that rather than the one very complex sentence I said before, okay? So having a good thesis doesn't mean that it has to be one sentence that's very, very long, okay? Careful not to make mistakes in your thesis. Naveen says, I believe individuals continue to work and pursue education in metropolitan areas for a better life. Nevertheless, they should not forget their traditions and culture. Okay, Naveen, I made a couple of corrections there, but there is a bigger mistake in your thesis. You give me the reasons of why they moved to cities, okay? So this is the original question, right? What are the reasons for this? Reasons for this is the better quality of life, obviously, through education and work. And do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Ideally, your thesis statement should include a very clear response to these two questions. Okay? If your thesis does not include a very clear answer for these two questions, it's not really a good thesis statement. So when you're practicing task 2 at home and your thesis statements at home, that's one very important check that you can make or that you can do is read your thesis and then think to yourself, did I answer the key questions with this thesis? If your answer is no, then you need to revise your thesis statement. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So that's what the IELTS examiner is looking exactly for that. Okay? For students who are going to get a good band score, 7 or higher, especially 8 or 9, the IELTS examiner is literally thinking, okay, does the introductory paragraph have a thesis statement that clearly answers the question that we're giving them? Okay? If the answer is no, or if the answer is yes, but it's an indirect answer, it's more difficult to get a high mark. All right, Mohammed, your thesis statement. In my opinion, the benefits of migration to urban cities from rural areas are for quality of education and better job prospects. And the deficits of cultural difference and the deficits are cultural difference and social isolation would be parallel form. Cultural difference, social isolation. That would be more parallel because cultural difference is an adjective noun and getting isolated is a verb, right, with getting. So you want to have parallel grammar there, Mohammed. Otherwise, you're definitely in the right direction. But again, here, really pay attention to this word, and that's why I'm showing you this example. One of the students requested this for today's class because of this key word here, outweigh. Your essay needs to target this concept of outweigh. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? So are the advantages more than the disadvantages? You have to target that in your thesis, okay? So Mohammed, you're very close. If you target that extra little piece of information in there, then you're spot on, all right? So Manisha says, I personally believe that the positives of this outweigh the negatives as migration of adults from countrysides offers them better education and career opportunities for higher quality of life. I would add that for higher quality of life in there, Manisha, and then you have a Band 9 thesis. So Manisha, if you put for higher quality of life at the end of that sentence, you will have a Band 9 thesis. No grammar mistakes, beautifully paralleled points, and a very clear position on the argument, okay? And nice paraphrasing, so you're not just repeating words. So Manisha, very good, okay? Very, very good. Shanu says, I believe that youth migrating to urban cities provides more opportunities to them, but they must stay connected with the roots as well. So Shanu, again, that last piece that you put in there, but they must stay connected with their roots as well. I feel like that's your personal feeling, which is okay, but the essay is not really asking you specifically for that. So it's better to make sure that you're sticking with the points of the essay than wandering off into a personal belief. That's one of the big dangers for task 2 questions, is students kind of have something that they feel strongly about and then they start talking or discussing, writing that. And that's fine. I mean, if we're sitting down at a coffee shop, great, I'd love to hear your opinion, but in the IELTS, they're not looking for that. They're just looking for the answer to this specific question, okay? So careful not to allow your personal feelings or thoughts about a question interfere with the right response, okay? Yeah, Mohammed, exactly. So adding that piece of information, hence, this is why the advantages outweigh the disadvantages, makes your thesis statement that much better, okay? So a good thesis statement here then is, let me just grab one of yours, I'll take Manisha's there, personally believe that the positives of this outweigh the negatives as migration of adults from the countryside offers them better education and career opportunities, which in turn leads to a higher quality of life. Okay, so grabbing that nice high-level thesis statement. Okay, so my points are clear, and now I can discuss it. Within this, so notice how here we didn't really target any of the negatives specifically in the thesis. So we didn't say the negatives are losing our roots or cultural differences. We can include that, and it's probably a good idea to include a little bit of that into the essay, but we don't need it in the thesis because our thesis needs to focus on the advantages outweighing the disadvantages and what those are. Okay? So, now let's get into the essay. So for the hook, what would be a good sentence here? Hint, hint, Mohammed, you gave me the answer of when the movement started from rural areas to urban areas. I think using that in a hook for this question would be brilliant and would definitely be reaching for that top level band 9 answer. So that's my hint there. All right. Jeffrey, don't worry about that. You can make those corrections when you're reviewing your work at home. So, of course, ladies and gentlemen, when you write your essays for task 2, review them, find your mistakes. Don't just jump from one question to the next. So if you're doing this at home, Jeffrey, and you see there's a question mark in your sentence, then at home, that's where you would cross that out and then put in a period, okay? So what is a good hook here? What would be a great hook for this question? I think a couple of you are probably already pondering on this. Let's see if yours ends up being somewhat similar to mine. Since the industrial, now you have to use a capital here because it's the name of a time period. So since the Industrial Revolution, there has been a great exodus from rural to urban areas. Okay? Exodus with an O. All right, so since the Industrial Revolution, there has been a great exodus from rural to urban areas. Exodus is just a nice piece of vocabulary I'm throwing at you. It basically means a lot of people leaving one place, so exiting one place, or animals could do that as well, okay? So Jeffrey's hook is, in the not-so-distant past, youth have been moving from their home to big cities like London for better life. Getting a little bit overreaching there, I think, Jeffrey. Getting into a specific example like London may be over the top. Keep it a little bit more simple than that. Naveen says, individuals definitely have the right to quality education and higher quality of life. I think you're off topic there, Naveen. Naveen, for the hook, try to include the topic of the discussion in some way. So here, remember that the topic is people moving to cities for living, or here, migration of young adults. So this is what the topic is. Your hook, a good hook, should have the topic clearly in there somewhere. Okay, I don't find that in yours, Naveen, so it seems too broad. It seems like you're going to be lost when you're writing. All right, so stay focused. All right, you can see that in my hook I have that. So in the actual hook here, I say there has been a great exodus from rural to urban areas. So movement of people from rural to urban areas. So that's the topic there. And if I want to make it more specific even to the topic, I could say youth. Right? So again, making sure to have that in there. All right, and then we go to the background. The background explains the importance of the question and gives a little bit of a definition of what we're talking about. Okay, so here I'll leave the definition to you, members. So what would be a good definition of the idea of youth moving away from rural areas? Okay, so that's what you should be thinking of here. So what are we talking about here? What are we talking about when we say that youth leave the rural place to go to a city? It sounds like I'm already explaining clearly what it is, but I'm actually not. I could say this a lot more clearly. And my hint here is think about quantitative language. So for definition in the background, it's really good to think of quantitative information. So information that your reader can very clearly measure. So they can say, aha, that's exactly what you're talking about. So you're not just talking about, I don't want to give you too much information because then I'll give you the background that I'm thinking here, but I'm sure you can come up with it as well. So what does it mean that a youth leaves a rural area? So here, what you should be thinking of is, what is a youth? What is a young adult? Okay? And you should be thinking about, what do we mean by leaving? So what does it mean that they go away? Okay, where do they go? What's happening? So think about numbers. How can I get some numbers into this definition to make it very, very clear for my reader what I think when I'm discussing this question? Let's see if you can come up with that background sentence. Think about when. When are people, in most cases, leaving rural? How many of them are leaving? One or two, or a lot of them, or... Okay, so Manisha says, after completing secondary education, youngsters are moving for higher education. Okay, yeah, you're on the right path there, Manisha. I would probably even be more specific and say after completing grade 12, adolescents are moving to enter university. That would be more specific. So instead of higher education, choose a specific institution like a university. Instead of just saying secondary education, name grade 12 graduation. So graduating grade 12. That's definitely one way that you can do it, and it's a good way. A little bit different from mine, but also very good. And you'll see that what I'm thinking of is very similar to what you're thinking, just defined a little bit differently with different numbers. I want to see if some of our other members come up with a different background here. So again, remember that quantitative information for the background definition, okay, when you're defining the concept of what you're discussing, or in this case, who you're discussing. Okay, so giving you a little bit more time here. So many adolescents around the age of 18. Let's see if anybody else is coming up with that. So Mohammed says, majority of adolescents are completing their intermediate education in their hometown and moving to cities for tertiary education. That's good. So you have some quantitative information in there with tertiary education. Nice vocabulary as well, Mohammed. I'm sure you'd score well. I'm really pushing, and I'm starting to get a good feel for the group now, so I'm really pushing you to get to that next level of your thinking and English. So many adolescents around the age of 18 living in towns and villages choose to move hundreds of kilometers away from home in search of university education or office employment. Okay, so that would be one way to give that definition of those terms. Notice the quantitative and visual information. So many adolescents around the age of 18. Boom, what have you done? Right away, you've created an image in your reader's mind. So now they're not just picturing some young guy or some young girl, but they're picturing someone who is 18, okay? And that's much more specific. It's easier to see in the mind, all right? Living in towns and villages. So I want to emphasize that here, right? It's an important point in the essay. Towns and villages, visual, I can see it. Choose to move hundreds of kilometers away from home in search of university education or office employment. And I wrote hundreds of kilometers. Now, is it true in every case? No, sometimes the towns are very close to the cities. They're only 10 kilometers away. But in this case, that doesn't matter for the question, because if you're only moving 10 kilometers away, then this question doesn't really apply. You can go back and help your parents on the weekend, or maybe even on the afternoon. You can drive a car, right? So in this case, we're probably not talking about rural areas that are just on the outside of the city and you can quickly zip back home after you're done your studies and feed the cows, okay? So I don't think that makes much sense. So I'm brave to just simply say move hundreds of kilometers away from home in search of university education or office employment. Again, I'm listing, so I have parallel grammar form there, okay? All right, so that would be a decent background. And then I would write something like what Naveen, I believe you wrote earlier, where all people have a right to a higher quality of life, and this is the reason for the choice, okay? So all people have a right for a higher quality of life, and this is the primary reason for this choice. Okay, so that's the importance of the question, all right? That higher quality of life. That's why we're doing it. And then here, all I have to do now is just grab the thesis statement and stick it in at the end of the essay. I might have to do a little bit of adjusting based on what words I chose in the previous two parts, but that's okay. I can do that, no problem. So let's have a look at the introduction, okay? Shanu, I'll read yours before we get there. So Shanu says, many youngsters are traveling to cities for better education and better living after completing their school. That's coming more into the argument part of the discussion as well, or more into the importance than the definition. I'm not sure if you're going for the importance or definition there, Shanu, but the definition is simply, what are you talking about when you're saying youth, and what are you talking about when you say moving away from rural areas into cities? Don't assume that your reader knows automatically what you're thinking. So don't assume that your reader knows that you're thinking 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Don't assume that your reader knows that they're moving hundreds of kilometers away from these rural areas, okay? Include that into your information for the definition. Okay, so let's have a look at this introduction and read through it carefully. Since the Industrial Revolution, there has been a great exodus of youth from rural to urban areas. Many adolescents around the age of 18 living in towns and villages choose to move hundreds of kilometers away from home in search of university education or office employment. All people have a right for higher quality of life, and this is the primary reason for this choice. I personally believe that the positives of this outweigh the negatives, as migration of adults from the countryside offers them better education and career opportunities, which in turn leads to a higher quality of life. Okay, that looks good. I definitely want to change one part of my thesis statement in this case. What do I want to change? So what should I change to make this a band 9 and make it even better? There's something that's a little bit redundant, so I should change that. What should I change? Well, change repeating words. So, which in turn leads to a higher quality of life, which in turn leads to better living. All you have to do is just a little simple paraphrase there, okay? So, which in turn leads to better living. And that's it. That's fine. Now, you have your two key points, the better educational opportunities, and you have the career opportunities, and then of course you have to connect those to better living. All right, so body 1, we have our topic sentence here, so I'm just going to structure body 1, and in body 1, what I would start with is something like 1 negative, okay, but the positive is more valuable. Okay, so I'm doing this point form. You're noticing that I'm not writing sentences here. You'll see where I'm going with this craziness in a second. So 1 negative is something, but the positive, education is more valuable, outweighs this deficit, plus explain, plus give example, plus connect. And then for body 2, it's almost the same, except you can start with another negative. You'll see where I'm going with this craziness. Just bear with me. Stay with me for a moment here. So another negative is, but the positive and then the same kind of structure, career opportunity is more valuable, outweighs this deficit, explain, give example. You don't need to connect in the IELTS. If you have a longer essay in university, you would. And then the conclusion. Okay, so this would be, yeah, this isn't madness, it's IELTS, says Jeffrey. Okay, you're right, Mohammed, it was that higher quality of life was written twice, so that's what I got rid of, right? So body 1, I have this structure here. Body 2, I have this structure here. Of course, I can use information from my planning, the what, why, hows for the controlling idea and the topic to finish this up. And then the conclusion. Okay, so this is a very effective structure for answering this question and this essay type, where it says do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. All right, so this time we spent a lot more focus on the introduction. I went into some more details on how to write a strong introduction with good background, good explanation, or a good importance of the idea, good thesis. And I've given you a skeleton outline for body 1 and body 2, and I'm going to leave the conclusion completely up to you. You have 2 days break from me right now. Monday, Tuesday coming up. There's no classes, so you have lots of time to write a really good essay response to this question and send it to me so I can give you some feedback of whether you're on the right track or not. Shanu, you're saying confusing. Can you give me a little bit more clarity on what you mean? What is confusing? So what are you confused by? And then I can help you more. All right, so again, going back to the question, here's the original question we're talking about. And I challenge all the viewers to do this. You don't have to be a member for this. You can just simply write the response, and I will gladly send you a score estimate and let you know how you did. The original question is, write about the following topic. Many young people are leaving their rural areas to either work or study. What are the reasons for this? Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Okay. Give reasons for your answer. Include any relevant examples from your own knowledge or experience. Yes, Manisha, all of this is for homework now. So body paragraph 1, 2, and the conclusion are for homework. You have a clear introduction. And my goal here, Manisha, is get you to the point where you can write the whole essay without having to rely on me to give you instructions in any of the parts. And this time I'm challenging you to do the full body paragraphs. So from your own thinking, your own knowledge, and what you've learned in previous classes and videos, okay? I know some of you are lagging on the previous homework. I know you haven't done it. A couple of our other members haven't done the previous homework as well, but you can still catch up. Send them to me anytime, okay? So for all of our viewers, again, I challenge you to complete this essay, the 2 body paragraphs and the conclusion. Here is my email again, adrian@aehelp.com. You can send it there, and over the next few days, I will reply with the score estimate. To review the structure of Task 2 and for lots and lots more help for the IELTS, check us out at aehelp.com for academic IELTS and gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. All right? Ladies and gentlemen, you are doing a great job. You're in class, you're present, you're picking up knowledge. Even just listening to me in these live streaming classes, you're improving your listening skills, so good for you. I look forward to receiving those essays. I wish you a very happy Monday and Tuesday, a good start to the week, and I will be back on Wednesday, where of course everybody will be able to join. We'll be continuing on with our course sessions, finishing up Task 1, moving on to Task 2. So again, continuing with writing. Much love to all of you, and I will see you in a few days. Bye for now.